My name is Darani Lewers and I'm a jeweller, silversmith and a designer. And together with my partner Helia, we have a workshop in the garden of our home. I started making jewellery around 1957, and I think this came about because my parents were artists. My mother was a painter and my father a sculptor, and it seemed that jewellery was halfway between those two practices, and we all hoped that I might be able to make a living from the jewellery. However, it was another problem when I looked around to try and find an art school or training. There were no art schools, and except the National Art School, and it didn't have a fully fledged jewellery course. So I went to the trade, and they told me that they couldn't accept me because I was a woman, and that even in the polishing room, if they hired me, there would be a riot. So that put me in a bit of a quandary. I got a traineeship with Nina Otts, who was an Estonian master jeweller and a partner in Rose Street in a little shop and workshop called Nina Proprietary Limited. And I worked with her for 1 year, and then I had an exhibition at David Jones Gallery in Sydney. I was fortunate enough to go to Denmark in 1958, and Helia and his partner had a workshop and a shop in Copenhagen. And I asked if they would take me on a month's trial basis. And they agreed to do that. And I stayed with them for 9 months, and it was the most wonderful time of my life. I learned all sorts of fascinating skills, and I also, at that time, Denmark was a leader in design in the world, so it was a very interesting period to be living there for this time. Helia and I decided to get married, and he came to Australia in 1961. So we started off in the Scandinavian tradition, making jewellery, large hammered neck rings and arm rings, using silver rod and sheet. And then gradually, as time went on, we became quite influenced, particularly Helia, with the Australian bush. And these large works then became fragmented into small parts and were linked together, and this led to movement in the jewellery, which was quite a character of our work for quite some years. We made this 2-finger ring. It relates to the Indian temple series. We became very interested when we travelled to India in the Hindu faith, and this particular piece relates to the southern Indian temples, and there are traces within the culture in this part of India to the role that women originally played in society. Mother Earth was a very important figure in ancient India, and the temples are low-lying, almost squat in some ways, and so they relate to the earth rather than being high and aspiring to God in the skies. The found object that we have incorporated into our jewellery belongs very much to our more recent practice. It started off in the 80s, but really didn't become part of our genre until the 90s. And we enjoy using the river stones, the pebbles from the beach, and the fragments of glass and ceramic shards, because they tell a story. They tell a story from where they came, and then when they're incorporated with other elements, they are renewed and become something precious and something other. So I call it the shock of the old, if you like. I think that jewellery is central to my life. I think that it has informed the person I am, and it is so integral to me that I find it hard to distinguish between myself and the work that I make. Throughout our lives, when we've travelled, for example, we always look with a particular eye at the visual environment. We're always building in our minds and collecting little details which we then assemble when we come home and discard, and through a long process until we make something new, which then takes us on a journey to the next body of work and the next exhibition we have. So there's a kind of cycle and a pattern to the way we have lived with our travels and our making and exhibiting, and our connection with the people whom we have met along the way who've bought our work. They are very important. They have become, many of them, close friends. Making jewellery which is wearable is central to our lives. The jewellery is only complete when it's worn on the body. It is also about making work which other people want to wear enough to buy it and get a lot of pleasure out of our jewellery. And that kind of exchange is very important to us. If no one wanted our jewellery, I don't think we'd make it. I think that, looking as an overview of our work in relation to today, of course we were shaped by all sorts of things. We were shaped by original training, but we were shaped by the political and social and economic forces of the times. We were shaped by the travels that we took over the years, and there were many of them, which provided wonderful experiences which we reinterpreted through our jewellery. And living here in Sydney, on the foreshores of Sydney Harbour, that was the prism through which we saw all our experiences. So today, the work that we do is in some ways quite different to that which we started with, but on the other hand, it's, I think there are still traces of our background. It lingers on. But hopefully, I like to think we've developed a very personal style, which is our own.